Hey, good morning, Metropolis. It's now 5 after the hour of 6 a.m. in the big monster city.
Come on! Let's get pumped!
Not drinking any fucking Merlot! What can I say? The camera loves me.
Shall we begin?
After you, Junior.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Multiplex Logged It. I'm your host, Kaleb Boatman, and today we got a fun show for you. We're breaking down best character introduction. Should be a good one. And on the panel, we've got a great one today. We got Mr. Payson Johnson.
Yeah, I'm doing great. This is a very broad topic, and I think there are many different types of movies we can talk about. So I'm excited.
Just a heads up, there's some bad weather in my area, so I feel like I'm on quite a bit of a lag. And we've got Mr. Brian Michaels. You're from the Midwest. You know how it is.
I am. I've been getting this stuff as well. Although I don't think that was a lag. I think it was just you introduced him. I don't think you knew he was supposed to talk yet. That's all.
Oh, yeah. Fair.
You said we have Payson Johnson, and then there's a pause. And he's like, "Oh, I guess I should talk." Okay, but yeah. I haven't been here in a while. Glad to be back.
Yeah, and we've got Kirk Kalakowski.
Hello, this is where I talk. How's everybody doing?
Okay, then. So, yeah, no, I think...
Can I put a preemptive ban on the words, it's fair, that's fair, for this episode? Can we try that?
Let's do that.
I can't do that, Brian.
Start the clock.
Yeah, no, you can time it, but it's going to be like a minute maximum. Yeah. Anyway, we're going to get started. First off, favorite movie log this week, as always. So, Payson, we'll start with you. What was your favorite movie log this week?
Yeah, last night, I cleared off a big blind spot for me, probably my biggest movie blind spot, and I watched what I'm going to describe as Robert Evans's Chinatown. I know he did not direct the movie, but we're going to attribute this movie to him because, yeah.
You mean Robert Town?
Robert Town, yes, not Robert Evans. I am so sorry. Going on 5 hours of sleep. This is going to be fun. No, Robert Towns. This is often considered one of the greatest screenplays of all time. And after seeing the movie, I'm like, yeah, I get it. It's not one of my personal favorite ones, but I think just from a scientific, structural level, you can see the perfection and just how everything is so perfectly calculated, and how Jake Geddes just finds out all the clues and all the information about this mystery, and how the just stuff about certain characters, specifically Faye Dunaway's character, starts to unfold. I think it's incredibly well directed. I think this is a gorgeously shot film, just how it makes California look. And Jerry Goldsmith's score is beautiful. The movie feels big, and that's kind of why I like it. It's one of those movies I've been putting off for a good amount of time, mainly just because I was just like, is this going to live up to the hype? But for me, it absolutely did. I just love how it it's a big, huge story, but I think the fact that it focuses on just these small amounts of characters makes it feel more personal, and that's why I really loved it.
That's fair. Well, shit. Anyway, Chinatown, an excellent film. Great mystery. Love the classic noir vibes, kind of neo-noir vibes. Nixon Dunaway is fantastic in this one. Yeah, I haven't watched it in a while, but I want to give it another chance at some point. I can't tell how badly I'm lagging, so we're going to go to Brian. Brian, thoughts on Chinatown?
Yeah, this Chinatown's one of those movies that it really deserves all the acclaim it gets. I mean, I don't have it rated as highly on my letterbox, but that's just because it's not, the that kind of film isn't usually my kind of thing. But as far as the quality of filmmaking, it's a very good movie. It's very well made. The acting's great across the board. It's kind of a classic for a reason. Like you, I haven't watched it in a while, but I actually just rewatched The Two Jakes, the sequel to it, this past year, a couple months ago. And actually, I think that one is underrated. I think it's probably not as good as Chinatown, but close to it. I enjoy it quite a bit. But yeah, Chinatown's a good movie.
Yeah. Kirk, thoughts on Chinatown?
No, classic for a reason. Great Nicholson performance. Faye Dunaway is great. John Huston is like just chewing up scenery as the bad guy. So so easy to hate in this. So yeah, really solid. I love like the '70s take on what is it, the 20s or 30s it takes place in.
30s.
30, yeah. Like the 70s take on the 30s is just really cool. I like the blending of those two eras, like the filmmaking era of the 70s versus like the actual like subject matter of the 30s is pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely. That's one of the most interesting parts of the film. So now we're going to move on to your least favorite movie you logged this week. Or not. Oh, wow. I'm not having a great day. Anyway, we're moving on to Brian's favorite movie we logged this week.
It's the All Payson Show.
Brian, go ahead.
I actually had a good week. I watched a lot of good movies this week. I think I'm going to go with one, but it's not a new release, though. This is one from 2015. This is a film called Too Late. This is a film starring John Hawkes. It's kind of a, I don't know, kind of a crime drama kind of thing. If you saw my Letterboxd review, I'm going to repeat myself a lot, but this is like a, Letterboxd-based show, so it's okay. But the best way to describe it is for anyone who is like alive in the movie-going age in the 90s, which is pretty much just me and Kirk. But also if you've gone back since then, you'll see that in the wake of Pulp Fiction, there was this flood. There were just so many movies that tried to knock it off and copy it and just want to be just like them. Just from the style, the nonlinear storytelling, the dialogue, both straight to video and in theaters. A lot of those things came out. And this movie feels very much like a movie that came out in that time. Because it definitely has, it came out in 2015, so it obviously isn't. But it has kind of that same kind of, it does do the nonlinear structure thing. It is largely, it's very dialogue heavy. It's basically just a lot of conversations to it. It's always tried to have that kind of cool kind of dialogue, which, kind of sounds a little unnatural and scripted, but it still kind of works just because you're kind of in this kind of alternate reality kind of world. It even has several Quentin Tarantino alumni like Robert Forster's in there. Sidney Poitier's daughter from Death Proof is in there. A couple other people. It's a movie. It's basically it's about this guy John Hawkes who is investigating the death of this girl that's from his past, which is kind of a whole mystery that unravels as it goes. But the movie is told in like 5 20-minute segments, and each one is one continuous take. Not any hidden cuts or anything. It's actually done in a continuous take. And I think that's very good because it lets you show, the actors can really act. They really get to get into it. They get to put on good performance instead of cutting it into like, 20 shots or something like that. Excuse me. It also makes it kind of feel like a play, which I kind of like. But the problem is that the nonlinear storytelling, I think, is not completely necessary, but I don't think it really hurt it. It's just like when it started off, I thought it was going like Memento, where it's like kind of telling the story backwards in sections, and you're going to kind of unravel at the end. But then it still kept jumping around, and I'm not sure that really did anything for me in terms of progressing the story. But this movie was not even so much about the story for me as just kind of an acting showcase. Like I said, it felt like a play. John Hawkes is phenomenal in it. Everybody else did a good job in it. The camera work in this is phenomenal, especially considering they did the continuous shot thing, because they're doing like conversations. They're flowing throughout different places. They're going like far shots. They're like, way across the street and then, blending right into the ones they're at. And it's got a great cast and it's really well done. The only person I know who's seen this is Kirk. And I know he liked it. So I will say right off the bat, the Kirk Bryan rule applies, and it is officially a good movie. So.
I don't know if that's always true, but that being said, Kirk, we'll go over to you since I know that you're the only other one who's seen it. Go ahead.
Yeah, this event, I missed Brian's review of this. I don't know how I ever looked it, but I would go back and see because I would have been really excited to see somebody else watch this because, this movie's in my top 100. This is a really solid movie. John Hawkes is one of those guys that is just, He got a lot of work in the '90s, but it was a lot of bit parts. And there's a few movies where I think this and I think Small Time Crime or Small Town Crime or Small Time Crime. I'm not sure, but anyway, another movie he did close to this that was. Where he was the leading man, and he just kills it. He's so good. I like the structure of this. I mean, obviously, I'm a sucker for long takes. I love that. So anytime you put that in the movie, I'm going to be on board for that. But I like the way that the structure of telling everything out of order, because it keeps you on your toes, and you really don't realize until the very end everything that's happened, everything that's going on. It all kind of makes sense, and everything ties into the beginning. So yeah, this is fantastic. I'm glad to hear Brian really liked it, and yeah, definitely. If you get a chance, check this out.
Fair enough. Well, Kirk, we'll go over to you for your favorite movie you watched this week.
Yeah. Italian director I discovered this year. His name's Fernando De Leo, and I talked about one of his movies last time I was on for Crime Gone Wrong. This week I watched another one of his movies called The Boss, and I think it's 72 or 74. I'm not sure about it. There you go, 73. But he is he basically it's the third movie in a trilogy. It's called a trilogy, but it's just a trilogy in name. Like there's no connective tissue, so you can watch them in any order. This is a great movie. A lot of people, I talk to them about crime films, and they say they don't like crime films because they glorify criminals. If that's a reason you don't like crime movies, then you should watch this one, because there's no one in this movie that the movie asks you or suggests or hints that you should root for. Everybody is just an awful person, and they're just doing like amazing, fantastic mob violence to each other. Another thing that's great about if you watch obscure 60s and 70s crime movies, if you throw a rock in a room full of obscure 60s and 70s crime movies, you're going to hit a Tarantino influence somewhere. And this one definitely, especially there's specifically one scene in this. If you watch this movie, you're going to be like, oh yeah, that looks really familiar. But just a lot of cool stuff going on. Henry Silva plays the main character, and that guy just looks like he wants to murder the world. He just looks like he's ready to kill anybody at any time, and he's just terrifying to look at and to watch. And he's really good in this. He's very one of those very stoic actors, but it fits for this role. And it just got a really great soundtrack. And like I said, great, murders and explosions and all kind of cool stuff. Yeah, it was right up my alley, and I loved it. I definitely want to check out even more from this director.
Yeah, I've never heard of this. I'm guessing no one else here has seen this. So yeah, it sounds dope. I want to check it out now. But we'll go over to me, and I'm going with a film that I have to be sure to say the release date when I talk about how awesome it is, or people get confused and think I'm praising a movie from 2015. But The Visit is great, everyone. This is an Ingrid Bergman, Anthony Quinn movie, and essentially the premise is that this woman who used to live in this town, played by Ingrid Bergman, comes back into town, and the town wants her to kind of. Now she's wealthy, but she was not when she was in the town, and wants her to give them money to kind of fix up the town because the town's come into some financial hardships. And essentially, I won't get into too much, but essentially it's revealed that in the past, Anthony Quinn had wronged her, and she says that she will give the town the $2 million at once, $1 million for the town, and $1 million divided up equally between everybody if somebody kills Anthony Quinn. And that's your movie. And it's largely Anthony Quinn, like, trying to convince people, like, don't kill me. There's a lot of paranoia going on. And Ingrid Bergman is at her scariest. This is such a different role for Ingrid Bergman. She's phenomenal. The fact that she wasn't nominated for this is just insane, because she's fantastic. Highly recommend. Jack Penchuk last week watched Defending Your Life as part of a trade with me, and this was my end of the bargain. I had to watch this, and I'm so glad I did. So has anyone heard of this?
I have not, but like 5 seconds in your
Because of-
explanation, I added to my wait list or my watch list. So definitely go check us out.
Because of Jack and Chuck, I heard of the movie.
That's fair. I highly recommend it. I feel like Kirk in particular will really vibe with this.
Yeah.
So anyway, now we're going to your least favorite movie you logged this week. So Payson, we'll start with you.
You know what movie sucks? The Twilight Saga New Moon. What a piece of shit this movie is. Quick thoughts. I watched the first Twilight as well. A bad movie. I'd be lying if I said I didn't have a lot of fun while watching it. Like, I think it's just a weird amount of cheesy funness that's not good at all. This one is not, does not have any of that charm. And I think it's because the story is just so stupid. Essentially, the main premise of this movie is Edward feels like he's a danger to Bella, so he leaves for Italy and refuses to tell Bella why, just the fact that he has to leave. So Jacob, her werewolf buddy, is like, my time has come, and he decides to make his move and decides to start caring for Bella. And then Bella's like, oh man, now I got the hots for you, until throughout the movie she tries to start killing herself in order to make Edward pay attention to her. Edward believes that she has killed herself, so he decides that he needs to kill himself, and then she needs to go back to Italy, and then they end up reconciling. Michael Sheen's there, he's kind of cool. And there's the plot of this movie. If what I just said doesn't sound like it has enough to fit a 2-hour and 10-minute movie, it's because it doesn't. They are stretching this franchise. Like, I have not seen Eclipse or Breaking Dawn, but the fact that this had to be one whole movie is asinine to me. Like, you could have put this into like an hour, and I think you would have been fine. And the other thing I want to hit on with this movie, I think everyone kind of knows that Edward's kind of a creepy guy and kind of weird. I'm sorry, Jacob is just as bad. Like, Jacob is that weird guy that thinks just because he's nice to Bella, that Bella should love Jacob. Like, I'm sorry, the people that like Jacob are the people that think Ducky from Pretty in Pink is a likable character. And I'm saying that as someone, like, to be honest, I used to be a Ducky in my life. I look back at that character with PTSD. I've grown. Ducky is not likable in Pretty in Pink, and Jacob is not likable in these movies.
Okay, well, we got a little too real towards the end there. Anyway, I basically agree. I especially on your thoughts on like that first Twilight movie. Like, yes, it's bad. If you grew up in like the late 2000s, there's a whole lot. Like, that movie's just late 2000s cheese, and I have a lot of nostalgia for that era. So it's hard for me to have any real negative reaction to it. It's just silly. It's just silly. This one is just bad. It's bad. The one plus I'll give it, there's a Vampire Weekend song in the background. And the fact that even though sonically there should never be a Vampire Weekend song in any of these movies, because that is way too happy of a band to be in the Twilight movies. Like, that's more of like a Paul Simon sound. You have to. This is Twilight, the vampires, Vampire Weekend. I don't think this is the worst one, because Breaking Down Part 1, I think, is just garbage. But this is awful. Brian, have you seen New Moon?
No, I had a friend who swore the Twilight movies were actually good, and so he sat down. He made me watch the first one with him, and that was it. And I never watched another one. And thankfully, I was it wasn't part of fandom during my brief flirtation with that.
When you say that was it for you watching the movies, or that was it with your friendship?
It was a little bit of both. I mean, he's still my friend, but I don't let him pick movies anymore.
Kirk?
Yeah, I've watched all these finally, because I had to for trivia last year sometime. It was a while ago. They all run together a little bit. They're all bad. I remember this is the one where Edward disappears, so they give Taylor Lautner more to do. Never give Taylor Lautner more to do.
Awful actor.
He can't handle it. Whatever you ask him, he's not off. So, keep him as support. Yeah, this one's pretty bad.
And just one quick point, kind of unrelated. I would like to say, both guys in Pretty in Pink suck. Like it's
That
not
is
just
true. That is true.
guys.
You want Pretty in Pink, but with two likable romantic interests. Some Kind of Wonderful. There you go. Both Watts and Amanda
Right here in
Jones.
front of me. There you go.
There you go. There you go. There you go. Both Watts and Amanda Jones are good options for Keith.
Nice.
Ducky and Blaine suck. Terrible. Awful. Anyway, we will.
I've been preaching that movie for years and nobody listened to me.
I watched it like way back in 2019 because of you.
Good.
Yeah, I never got an acknowledgement of it. I'm glad I got it now. Anyway, now we're going over to Brian. Brian, what's your least favorite movie log this week?
Let's see. The worst movie I watched that I'm not already discussing on another show. I'm gonna say The Score. Now, let me give you the list. This is not the Edward Norton Robert De Niro movie. This is a 2021 crime musical. This movie takes place for the most part in its three characters in a single location. It's played by Will Poulter, the upcoming Adam Warlock from Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, who, I've liked in a lot of stuff. I think he's a good actor, all the way going back to Son of Rambo, his first movie, which a lot of people should see. He was supposed to play Pennywise in It until he dropped out. But he's done a lot of great movies. And then Johnny Flynn is the other guy. He's not really as well known. He's been like Emma, the new version, The Outfit with Mark Rylance, something else. Oh, he's in the movie called Song 1 with Anne Hathaway. But they play a couple guys who are like holed up at this remote roadside diner. And there's some kind of, criminal business deal going down. They're basically waiting there for the other people to show up to this thing to go on. And while they're there, you kind of realize that Johnny Flynn's character is planning on double crossing Will Poulter. And then in the meantime, there's also the waitress at the place, the third character, played by Naomi Ackie, who was in the Whitney Houston biopic. She was also in Rise of Skywalker. She plays like the server, possibly owner of the diner. I'm not sure. But she's kind of flirting around with Will Poulter, and they're kind of falling in love, apparently, while he's one afternoon sitting there at the cafe. But it is a musical. And I like musicals. I like a lot of musicals. I'm a sucker for musicals. Even the ones that kind of are in a genre that don't usually use musicals, or they try something new. I'm all game for it. But the problem is, in a musical, the songs have to be good, and the songs in this all suck hard. Johnny Flynn, one of the actors, he is actually the guy who wrote the songs for it. They're all very dreary and boring, and kind of, I guess I'd call them folk songs, kind of. But it's just a dreary, and they're so monotonous, and the songs are just not exciting at all. And if you're a musical, that's a big problem, because if you've chosen to tell your story through music and the music sucks, so basically your whole movie suffers because of it. So I don't blame the performers. I think that especially Will Poulter and Naomi Ackie, I thought did good jobs. I mean, they're not like professional singers or anything, I don't think. But I think they were both fine with what they had, but it's the songs themselves that sucked. And that just made me dislike the entire movie. And this is a movie that I had never heard of, but until someone I knew mentioned it. And so I'm like, oh, I got to check it out. I like the cast, I like Will Poulter. I like musicals. I'll check it out. And I was just super disappointed by it.
I'm not going to say that's fair, but that's fair. Has anyone? I hadn't even heard of this movie.
No.
I hadn't even heard of it before this.
That's fair. Well, we'll move on. Kirk, what's your least favorite movie log this week?
My least favorite movie is a movie. I think this was. I watched it on Hulu. I don't know if it was direct to Hulu, but I think it was a streaming movie. Didn't get a release from last year, called Spin Me Round. On paper, really solid cast. It's got Aubrey Plaza, it's got Alison Brie, it's got Tim Heidecker, it's got what's his name, Gabe from The Office. It's got Molly Shannon. It's got this really good cast, and I thought on that alone, like it looked like just like a cheesy, generic rom-com, but it had a solid cast, so I said we'll watch it. And it was a really like bad, just a stereotypically bad rom-com where the plot doesn't go anywhere. They try to set it up like there's almost like this intrigue, but there's a bunch of like dangling plot threads. What it is Alison Brie plays the manager of the restaurant. It's supposed to be like an Olive Garden type of restaurant, and they have this special thing where they send their managers to Italy for like some kind of conference to learn about Italy and food and everything. So she goes and she meets all these other people there. That's the thing. The movie takes place in Italy, and that's like the big thing. Oh, we're going to Italy. The majority of it, they're sitting in a hotel like conference room, like talking to each other. So they completely waste the setting and the where they're at. And then Aubrey Plaza plays like the assistant to the owner, and her and Alison Brie become friends, and they start doing stuff. And then Aubrey Plaza just like disappears from the movie with like 40. Like her character gets real interesting, and then she's gone, and she doesn't come back. And
had to go do the White Lotus,
I guess. And then the story is like building to this thing, and then it just I won't spoil the ending, I guess, but it's just like a punchline. It's like a really dumb punchline, and then the movie ends. The cast is solid. The scenes where they're all kind of like sitting together, like it doesn't involve the main plot. It's just like the supporting cast sitting around. There's like a lot. It feels like there's like a lot of improv going on. And they're just trying to make each other laugh, and that's the best part of the movie, where they're just kind of like goofing around. But the main storyline just drags and is boring, is dumb, and goes nowhere. So it looks. You look at it, you're like, oh, this looks pretty good. I would recommend it.
You absolutely lost me when you said the best part of the movie is the people just like improving, trying to make each other laugh. That's what killed the modern day comedy, mainstream comedy, in my opinion, is the Judd Apatow. Just let Seth Rogen and Paul Rudd say whatever they want, and it'll make a good movie.
It almost feels like they all know they're in a bad movie, and they're like, let's just do something with it. Like it's really weird. It's a weird vibe, the whole thing, but the whole thing's pretty bad.
Valid. Brian, I feel like if anyone's seen it, maybe you.
No, I have vague recollections of coming across this online because I'd never heard of it, but I think I was going through Hulu or something. I saw it, and like him, I was intrigued because I like the cast. I'm like, oh, I like a lot of these people in this cast. But then I watched the trailer for it, and it didn't look great. And I saw the few reviews that it had from friends I know, and none of them were good, so I didn't possibly.
That's fair. Payson, were you trying to say something?
Yeah, so I haven't seen this movie, but this week I saw another Jeff Baena, Aubrey Plaza collaboration, which is the guy who directed the movie. It's called Life After Beth, and that movie also isn't very good.
Aren't they married? Isn't that her husband?
Yeah, they're married.
Oh, I had no idea.
The one I've heard kind of good things about is The Little Hours.
Fair.
That's the one.
Good. What? I'm sorry, Good.
No, I've heard that one is decent.
It was.
I will say Life After Beth is better than this one.
Fair enough.
Fair.
Well, now we go to me, and as I've said, I think a few weeks ago on this show, I have continued my futile, pointless, and idiotic journey into the world of different Oscar categories, and now I'm going through the Best Supporting Actress winner because I'm a masochist. The movie I watched a few days ago was the film from 2003 where we decided, hey, Zellweger needs an Oscar. Guys, this one's bad. This is bad. Jude Law got nominated for this, and he's bad. The song got nominated. He's bad. Nicole Kidman, thank goodness she didn't get nomination because she's atrocious. Her southern accent is so bad. Whenever she says the word letters, like, did you get my letters? She says, it sounds like this. Did you get my lettuce? Did you get my lettuce? And I literally was so confused because I didn't have subtitles on. And she was like, did you get my lettuce? I'm like, did she just send him some lettuce? And then I realized they were talking about letters.
Did I just miss a whole lettuce subplot?
There's a whole lettuce subplot. It's like a Civil War thing. It's Anthony McKella, the guy who did The English Patient. I don't even like The English Patient. So it's already at a bad thing for me, and I think this one is worse. The one person I'll be like innocent because in anything he's in, he's always innocent. Philip Seymour Hoffman. always golden. He's the best part of this movie. He's not in it enough. He should have been in it more. I think this is. I didn't even say anything about Renee Zellweger. She's awful. Like, she is atrocious. Her southern accent's bad. I don't even know what she's doing. Like, I think she is. So far, she is my last place for the best supporting actress winning performances I have seen. I think she is that atrocious in this movie. So yeah. Kirk, have you seen this?
I have not. I've heard like good things about it, but I've never been a big Renee Zellweger fan, and I think the fact this is where she got her Oscar kind of turns me off. And I don't love Nicole Kidman either. Like the cast in general, except for Hoffman, I'm like, yeah. So and it just looks kind of dull and boring, and like just people walking through snow. So nothing about this ever really sucked me in.
Yeah, that's pretty much all it is. Payson, have you seen this?
I hear that. I hear the talented Mr. Ripley is really good. Of like Anthony Minghella. Like I've heard that one is good.
I will say that one is actually very good. I think that's more in the script than Anthony Minghella, but it looks pretty. I'll give you that. Brian?
I have seen the first 45 minutes of this movie when it opened in theaters, and something happened, like the film broke or something, and they told us, oh, it'll be back up in like 3 minutes. And I said, no, it's good. I'll just take my pass and go see something else instead, because what I had seen was not good. And largely it was because of Renee Zellweger and her atrocious accent. I wasn't as critical of Nicole Kidman's accent, but I imagine that wasn't good as well. I mean, it's been a long time since 20 years ago this came out. So I don't remember a whole lot about it, but I remember not being impressed.
That's fair. Yeah. Anyway, so that concludes it for that portion of the show. Now we get into our meat and potatoes, which is character introductions. This is how these characters pop up first time we see them. I think there's a lot of good ones. I'm really actually excited for this one. I pitched this one and it was like, I think this would be really fun to do. So I'm super excited. Payson, I'll let you kick us off.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm gonna start off with a really off the wall sort of pick, but it's just one that has stuck with me since I saw the movie. I've seen this movie many times. I love this film. I'm going with I was gonna try to pull up the lyrics, but I'm not gonna subject anyone. I'm going with the Jesus from The Big Lebowski. This is a character that is only in the movie for 5 minutes, but I think when they think of this character, the first thing that comes to mind is that intro. You have just those guitars strumming. He's just lacing up his shoes. He takes the ball and he does the tongue thing. I won't do the tongue thing, but like he does the tongue thing with the ball. And then he bowls, and then he turns around, and Spanish Hotel California comes on. John Turturro, just in his full Turturro-ness. He looks over at Steve Buscemi, and he gives the little kiss to him because he looks the youngest. And then you just have John Good, and then you just have Walter just saying all the reasons why this man is the worst guy in the world, and just like he's a complete pederast. And yeah, I just love this. And then he has the few lines of just like, I'm gonna put this gun up your ass and pull the trigger till it goes click. And it's incredible. I love this.
Yeah, no, this is a phenomenal pick. I love this. When you said this character's only in the movie for 5 minutes, that was like my brain had to like process that for a second, because I always forget how little this character is in this movie, because I feel like that's why he makes such a big impact, because like he seems like he's in more of the movie than he actually is. And yeah, no, I love this pick. This is a great way to introduce a character.
And it's also like a smash cut. Like it has nothing to do with the scene that preceded it. Just smash cuts and just he's lacing up his shoes.
Yeah. Brian, thoughts on this introduction?
Yeah. Well, first I want to say I can only see the top. Is that the Nakatomi Plaza Corporation on your shirt?
Yes, it is.
I thought I recognized that. Anyway, sorry. Yeah, this is a good choice because it's one of those things. Like you said, he has a small role in it, but he makes such a memorable impression on you. And even before you get into the whole, the dialogue with the dude and everybody else, just that the Hotel California and the slow-mo and with his tongue and everything, it's just a perfect introduction. It's like everything you need to know about this character already.
Yeah, and Kirk.
Sorry, I was muted. This My favorite thing about the Big Lebowski is like that world of like bullying culture that they create, and just how weird it is. And then you just get a glimpse of it. Like you just see like the tip of the iceberg, and there's like a bunch of other things going on there. But like I just love the what we get of it. And yeah, this character, just the way that like him walking and then the reaction shots and everything, and with the ball cleated and everything is a lot of fun. Like he's one of those great like one scene characters when you think about those different movies. He's a really great one.
That is fair. Dang it. Brian, we'll go over to you.
It's a good thing I have to work tonight, so I couldn't do shots every time you said it.
If somebody would die.
Yeah.
Like that I do not do that at home. Oh, it's funny. One time my girlfriend was watching this show when we were like joking about how much I say that's fair. Now every time I say it, she'll just go, shot.
That's awesome. I love it.
Good.
I guess I'm gonna stay on brand. I'm gonna go with one that's kind of obvious, but it truly is just a great character introduction, and that is Captain Jack Sparrow, Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yeah.
The introduction of this character. Now, when you saw the like, I looked back at the trailer of this movie, and it made him look all swashbuckling and heroic. There was no indication really of how comedic he was, the slapstickiness of him, and this scene kind of let us know right away who he was and what we're in for. Because I mean, it starts off, you see him standing atop the mast of a ship, and Hans Zimmer's bombastic, triumphant, heroic score is playing, and as you see him just kind of soaring across the sea. Then they switch, to a wide shot, and you see he's just on like this little dinghy, and he has to jump down and bail out water because it's sinking. And then, like as it's sinking down, he climbs back up to the mast again, and like just as it's about to go into the water, he steps off onto the dock. And just in that moment alone, I think you realize that you're not in for a swashbuckling hero. You're in for somebody who's kind of goofy. And then in that same scene when he's interacting like with the dockmaster and things, just his dialogue and his mannerisms, even just the way he walks across the dock, it's like. Like I said, you learn everything about this character that you need to know. You immediately know what you're dealing with, and you know what you're in for the rest of the movie. And I thought it was just such a great way to introduce a character that even before he starts talking, it's like you've really learned about him.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. It basically sums up everything about this character into 1 minute. Like you have him essentially, especially with like that walk under the dock, essentially you get the sense of he is an incredibly flawed, not always doing it the right way, but somehow he makes it out by the skin of his teeth and he survives. And that's Jack Sparrow. And I think, yeah, that sets it up perfectly. I'll just put a great image. Just that image of him standing on the sinking ship. Just a perfect image. Like if we were just picking like singular images to sum up a character, this would be probably my number one. Like,
and the score works perfectly with it too, because you hear, like I said, the bombastic theme, but then as soon as he steps in the dock, it's about that kind of almost a comedic beat to it.
Yeah, absolutely. Payson, thoughts on this introduction?
So it's funny, when I saw this movie in theaters, it was the first PG-13 movie I ever saw. I was 5 years old, and I genuinely thought that was just how you dock boats. Like, the boats just magically sink to the bottom of the ocean, and when they're ready to sail, you just press a button, they come back up. And I was just like, oh, he's just a cool pirate. Look at him. But no, like, as I've gotten older, now when I look at the scene, I think it's just a perfect, like, encapsulation of just like this whole world is crumbling under this guy's feet, and he just takes one step and he's off to his next adventure. And Garth, I do just want to say, you think Koho is off screen holding a gun on Brian? I believe Brian is legally allowed to say that he is a bigger Pirates of the Caribbean fan than Kaleb Koho, if I'm not mistaken. One question, but yeah, legally allowed to say that.
He is. I do just want to point out, Payson, it's very funny that you say you were 5 when you saw your first PG-13 movie.
Why do you guys hate me and keep saying that?
I'm sorry.
Brian, I'm gonna make you even feel more great. You were 5 when you saw your first PG-13 movie in theaters. I was 11 And it was on Stranger Tides.
Oh, fair.
Let's go to Kirk.
I'll say PG-13 didn't even exist when I was 11.
Yeah.
Good point.
Kirk, what are you?
Yeah, I think this is, like you guys said, perfectly captures just like that whole fly-by his pets, and also that confidence and that swagger, even when things are completely falling apart around him. Like he's not going to show that, you know, he's still Captain Jack Sparrow, and even if the boat's sinking, you know, he's going to keep his head up and, you know, and ride it out. So yeah, just perfect way to show you. You said it perfectly, Boatman. Exactly what you need to know about this character, just in a few minutes, which is what these character introductions are supposed to do.
Absolutely. Brian's first PG-13 movie in theaters was Red Dawn, I believe. as we go over
one. With Chris Hemsworth and Josh Peck. Yeah. The Chris Hemsworth, Josh Peck movie? Nothing weird about that.
Yes, totally. That one. That Red Dawn. Kirk, go over to you.
Okay, I'm going to stick with a theme of foreign language violent crime movies from 1973. I'm going to go with a movie called Lady Snowblood. This is a movie, again, speaking of Tarantino influences, this is a movie that heavily influenced the Kill Bill series in a lot of different ways. This scene, you know, specifically, basically the movie opens there, and it's one of those ones again where you don't have all the information what's going on. It's kind of open to you as the movie goes. So all you see is the beginning of the movie is there's a baby being born in the prison, and the mother's dying, and the mother basically says to the baby, "You are going to be my vengeance. You're going to carry on for me." Cut to the snowy road. It takes place like in feudal Japan. And you see this woman walking by. She looks like a traditional, you know, humble Japanese geisha. She's got the robe on. She's taking like the little small steps. She's got like a purple, like one of those like purple parasols made out of like, you know, almost like a cardboard type, you know, not very solid. But she's just walking by with that. And this carriage comes by, and, you know, there's some bodyguards around like, "Get out of the way, you idiot. You know, don't you know you're standing in the way of this, like the biggest crime boss in town, blah, blah, blah." So without, you know, any, you know, she just stands there looking at him, pulls out a short sword, starts cutting up the bodyguards. It's like I said, it's snowy, so you got blood splattered all over the snow. And you know, then she takes her parasol and she pulls a sword out of it, the end of it, and then she's fighting. She's blocking with the parasols, swinging with a sword. Great fight scene. And then when it's all done, she kills the last one, sticks the sword back in the parasol, and just takes her little small steps walking back away. And it's like an aerial view. You just see the parasol walk around. And it's just a great introduction. Again, you don't know exactly why she's doing. Oh, when she kills the crime boss, it's like, "Why are you doing this? What are you?" She's like, "I am vengeance. I am Lady Snowblood." And then the credits roll. And just a really cool introduction for this character. Just a really cool look to the character. Like I said, she's dressed up as this like traditional Japanese geisha, and she's just wrecking dudes. It's a great movie. And just a great way to start out and introduce this character.
Yes, I haven't seen this, but sounds awesome. Brian Payson, have you seen this?
I have not, but it sounds cool. Add to my watch list.
So far, everything I've talked about tonight is available on Criterion Channel.
That's fair. Payson, just a heads up, am I the only one who's... Oh, never mind. Payson was like out of focus for me.
My new camera takes a little to autofocus, but once it does, it looks nice.
Valid. Anyway.
Oh yeah, I just noticed no more walleye vision.
Yeah, no more fisheye. So now we're over to me for my pick, and I'm also going with the 70s movie. I'm going with an English language one though, and Payson picked one where I think a song perfectly kind of encapsulates the character and the vibe, what we're going for. I think the song that fits here is Cat Stevens' "Don't Be Shy," playing while Harold hangs himself in the opening of Harold and Maude. Is just such a great way to introduce this character. You get the Cat Stevens song starting to play, and you see this Harold doing something, you don't know what he's doing, and then you realize he's hanging himself, and he does that, and his mom walks in and has this completely nonchalant reaction, just starts talking on the phone, and it's just like, "Harold, do be quiet, won't you?" And then you realize, oh, he's faking it. what a great way to just sum up how weird this character is and how weird this movie is, especially with that soundtrack playing. I think this is an incredible way to kind of just sum up who this character is and how odd he is. Kirk, thoughts on this introduction?
Yeah, great introduction for the character. Also, great way to set the tone for the movie because it's so off-putting when you see what's happened. You think you're watching. Oh my God, what do I get into? And these guys hanging himself, and then when the mom, I think I forget the actress's name, but she's so good at this. Like,
Vivian Pickles, I believe, is her name.
Yeah, that sounds right. And she just her playing off of him and just her response to everything he does, but specifically here when you're first kind of get your bearings of what's going on. Great scene to set up the entire movie and everything's going to happen with this character.
Brian?
I am not a fan of this movie, but I will say that is a great introduction to that character. I thought that was extremely well done.
That's fair. I'll take it. Payson?
No, I love this movie, and I think this is such a great tone setter for the film. Of like the first death you see is just like gruesome and like weirdly dark, and just it is completely played off in the most nonchalant way. I think it really just does a great job at establishing the person of Harold and how he just has this weird concept of just the way he views life and death.
That is fair. Now we move on back over to Payson. Payson, what's your second pick?
I'm going to go for it this time. Detective! I'm going with John Doe from Seven. It's weird that I picked the Jesus, who is a cancelable character, and I'm now going with John Doe, who is played by a cancelable man. I don't know what that says about me tonight, but we got a theme. I don't know why. But no, I think this is such an incredible introduction. And I think the great part about it is I think people forget how far into the movie this happens. Like, I'd say, like, for the majority of the movie, both Somerset and Mills have had like no sense of leads as to who the killer really is, and just the fact that Fincher just makes the decision of he's just gonna walk into the police station, and there he is, and you just have Kevin Spacey just blood on his hands. I want to speak to my lawyer, and there's the villain right there. There's no doubt if this is the guy. There's no doubt, like, oh, is he lying? Like, the second he shows up, you know this is the guy. And the sense of error and the sense of dread that character fills is there with you for the entirety of the movie. And I think just that the whiplash of that scene, I think, is just perfect.
And one thing I want to point out that I think also just makes this pop so much is that Spacey, and these two can correct me if I'm wrong. Well, I know Spacey's not in the opening credits, and I don't believe he was in any of the marketing either.
No.
But yeah.
And this is like pre-internet forums and stuff too. So there was like no buzz. Like when he first showed up on screen, I was like, holy shit. Now he wasn't as big a name, obviously, as he was after that.
Had Usual Suspects already come out at this point, or
Usual Suspects had come out?
Because I know they're the same year.
Oh, it was close. I don't remember the exact dates, but I mean, I had seen him in other stuff, just in smaller roles. But still, it's like you had no idea who he was. He was not in the marketing. Nobody knew. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But yeah. Anyway, I think that just adds an extra like element of awesomeness to this introduction. Great image of just out of nowhere, covered in blood, like, and the taxi walk, so good. The goofy little question I do always have when I watch this, was the taxi driver just cool with driving around with the guy covered with blood in the back? I mean, I guess, taxi drivers, they'll have anything.
New York, man.
Yeah, New York. Nobody asks any questions. Brian, thoughts on this introduction?
Yeah, well, Seven is one of my favorite films of all time. It's definitely my favorite crime film. Well, I guess Pulp Fiction's a little higher, but I love it's my favorite Fincher film. It's probably my favorite film from any of the actors involved in it. And I really have loved this movie since the day I first saw it. And I remember when I first saw it, I was actually friends with a guy who worked at the theater, so we were like previewing them like a couple days before they actually opened. It was like, hey, let's watch Seven. I'm like, sure, why not? and I watch it, and not only was blown away by the movie, but that scene when he showed up, like I said, nobody knew Kevin Spacey was in this, and you see him, and just the way he does it as well. Because he walks to the police station, they all panic, like, what the fuck? And they pull out their guns, because like he walked in, but he still could be dangerous, and you don't know what he's going to do. And Kevin Spacey, I mean, his real life aside, was a phenomenal actor, and he was so good in this role, and he played it so cold and calculated, and I really loved him in this role, and that was a great introduction.
Yeah, Kirk.
Yeah, I think this is great. I'm glad Payson brought it up because this is one of the ones I was considering talking about. It's just so cool because throughout the whole movie, they're just looking for this guy, and they've built him up as like just this horrific, unspeakable monster, and they can't figure him out. They can't find him, and then he shows up, and they have him. But now it's almost like it's worse because, like, why is he here? He's still like, he's in control. He's doing it for a reason. He's here because he wants to be. And there's, they're just basically, they're playing his game, and and Morgan Freeman knows that Brad Pitt's it takes him a while, too long to get caught on it to what's happening, but he is in complete control when he walks in, and despite everything we've seen up to this point, this might be the most terrifying. It's like, okay, he's exposing himself. He's got all this trouble to keep the secrets. Now he's exposed himself. Why is he doing this?
Yeah. Absolutely. So now we'll go over to me, or no, Kirk now, I believe. Kirk, go ahead.
My second pick?
Yep, your second pick.
Okay. All right. I'm going to go with one that I don't think people, when they think about character introductions, they think about too much. But just as far as a cinematic way like we were talking about Jack Sparrow, to introduce a character, I think this is one of the greats. I'm going to go with the introduction of Clive Owen's character Theo in Children of Men. Children of Men is a movie packed with, again, talking about long takes, a lot of long take scenes in this movie. This one is not talked about as much because maybe not as flashy as fancy, but it's still great. Basically, it is, this story of Children of Men takes place in a world where women have stopped getting pregnant for, probably decades now. It's been since a baby's been born. And the opening scene is on the news. The oldest or the youngest person on earth, the last baby to be born, has been murdered. And it's this person has obviously been a celebrity, so it's a big story. And it opens in a coffee shop, and there's a TV, and you're looking out from the counter, and everybody's just staring like flabbergasted by this news story. Clive Owen walks in, kind of, as they're just everybody's still. He's pushing through people, has his head down, buys his coffee, barely looks up, walks out, puts the some booze in his coffee as he's walking away, and then the bomb goes off, and he's kind of out of the picture at that point. And I think it's just such a great great cinematic storytelling of showing how disconnected this character is from the rest of the world, people around him. And just in that one scene of him, just that visual of everybody completely still and him moving through, their heads all up, his head down. I think it's just a brilliant little piece of real subtle filmmaking. Sets up his entire character arc right there, that scene, everything he goes through in this film. This is one of my favorite movies. And again, this has some of my favorite scenes in movies. But this is right up there with the rest of them.
Yeah, this is a great set of... This movie just has a great set of long takes because it's Quaron, and he loves his long takes. And yeah, this one just has a phenomenal set of them. Yeah, I wouldn't have thought of this pick, but this is a good one. I really like this pick. This is, especially with the head down, it's a great visual. It's a good pick, Kirk. Payson, thoughts?
This is a movie I have never seen, and I really need to.
Oh, yes, you do. You would dig this.
Yeah.
Fair.
Yeah. Brian.
He hasn't seen Children of Men? Wow, that surprises me. Yeah, and this is another movie that I don't love as much as a lot of people do, but it is an excellent movie. I will freely admit I don't even remember the introduction of him. That's just because I haven't watched it in a long time. But yeah, Kirk does a good job of painting the picture of it. So.
Fair. And I realized because I associate the movie Seven with Brian so much, I was like, okay, Brian made his pick. Now we're moving on to Kirk. I skipped over Brian. So Brian,
that's what I thought.
Yeah, no, that's I associate the movie. I know like that's one of Brian's favorite movies, so my brain just went, okay, yep, Brian's pick. Going over to Kirk. So sorry, Brian. Over to you.
Okay.
For your second.
Oh, it's gonna go backwards, so Payson will go after me? Okay.
Well, Payson already went, so we're just here.
We only did one. I'm just saying. Whatever.
Well, Payson went twice. Payson did the Jesus and he did John Doe. And so basically,
okay. Sorry, for some reason
we're just backtracking to you because I skipped over you. That's what's happening here.
There's another one I was hoping somebody else would do. But I'll skip that one anyway. I'm going to go with one.
We can give you one of the third picks if you want to, because we'll need 10 total spots, so we can give you one of the third picks.
We'll see. I am going to go with one. Another Brad Pitt movie. I'm going to go with Achilles in Troy. I love this movie. Not everybody does, but whether or not you like the movie, I think that his introduction to that character is extremely well done. Because again, when I think of like a great opening, a great introduction to a character, it's something that is A, kind of cool, but B, it really just tells you who the character is. Just right away, you know who this character is, and it kind of announces their presence. If you have not seen Troy, it opens up with basically these two armies on the battlefield getting ready to face off, and King Agamemnon, the king of one of the armies, played by Brian Cox, he basically says, "Hey, why don't we just put my best guy against your best guy? They'll fight it out for who wins, and we'll go home." And of course, they bring out like Nathan Jones, this big, gigantic, hulking guy. He was also in like Mad Max Fury Road and some other stuff. And then so he calls for Achilles, and Achilles doesn't answer. Calls him again, doesn't answer. And then they send a kid to go looking for him. And then you find the kid walks into the tent, and Brad Pitt is laying there naked in his bed with not one but two women, also naked, just laying in his bed with him. He's just sleeping away. And he wakes him up and says, "Hey, the king's waiting for you in the battlefield." And he finally gets up, he gets dressed, and this is where the kid says something like, the guy is huge, I wouldn't want to fight him. And he says, "That is why no one will remember your name." That's where that memorable line comes from. But then he, arrives at the battlefield. He rides his horse through the entire army as they kind of part like the Red Sea to let him through, and they're all chanting his name. Everybody's Achilles, Achilles. And then, he goes to the king and says, "Why didn't you fight your own wars?" And he goes, "Fine, I'll go." And he starts walking towards his opponent. Then it turns into a jog, and he's like dodging the spears really easily. And then he goes into a run, and just with one smooth move, he jumps up and does like this Mortal Kombat finishing move. And then before the body even hits the ground, he's just walking away. And then it's like in just this moment, in just this opening scene of it, you realize that you know everything about his personality, his skill, his disdain for the king. That war is like something he doesn't enjoy, but he's just happens to be very skilled at. And I think it just kind of sets up his whole character for the whole movie. I just love the way he was introduced like that.
I have not seen Troy. But when you said, "Oh, I'm going to pick a Brad Pitt character introduction," part of me thought you were going to go with Meet Joe Black. And that would have been very funny. But no. Payson, have you seen Troy?
I have. No, my mom and my dad were a big fan of this one, so I watched it a weird amount of times as a young youth because they would just rent it from Hollywood Video. I quite enjoy this movie. I think there's a clear point where I think the movie starts to lose steam, and it's when a certain character dies. But no, yeah, I think Brad Pitt is honestly really, really great in this movie. Just has that great like movie star quality. I think this scene is a great encapsulation of that character, and you would need that to play like a Greek hero, and Brad Pitt is really kind of perfect as that.
That's fair. Kirk, thoughts on this introduction?
No, this is a really good pick. I'm a sucker for scenes like that subvert your expectations, where there's a big build up, something's going to happen, and then it's over in like 2 seconds, and it just it was nothing. I love scenes like that, so I think it's a lot of fun. And yeah, I just love how you get right away how completely over it Achilles is. Like, he's just not into this at all, and I think Brad Pitt does that so well. And yeah, you get like his whole lifestyle within just a few minutes of screen time. And like Payson said, I think he's great. Like, this is a real kind of throwback to those sword and sandals kind of movies, and he's the kind of guy that would have fitted perfectly back in that era.
Yeah. Now it's my pick, and I am going with Lilo's introduction from Lilo and Stitch. I think this first of all, I love the cut of like Jumbo Jukiva being like, and what planet has my monstrosity been unleashed? And then we just get the fade into like the Hawaiian music and the fish swimming, and then Lilo swims in, and we get the great music, and we get, the fish with the peanut butter sandwich in its mouth, even though we don't know why yet. And we get Lilo trying to make it there, that great song playing, and then, she comes in late and wrecks everything. And then we just get one of the most amazing interactions ever. It's like, Lilo, you're late. I had to bring Pudge the fish a sandwich, and we were all out of peanut butter. And my sister said we should use tuna. Do you know what tuna is? Fish? It's fish! I can't feed Pudge tuna. I'd be an abomination. Pudge is a fish? Yeah, who controls the weather? Like, just a way to sum up the weird way Lilo thinks and the different things she says about. I think this is a great introduction for a character I love. Payson, thoughts on this introduction?
Great introduction for a great character. This is one I've been meaning to rewatch because I think it's been like probably close to 20 years since I've seen the movie. But like when you say it, like I can very distinctly picture that scene. And yeah, great pick.
Kirk?
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of Lilo and Stitch, at least not as much as everybody else is. But yeah, great introduction. Great way to just make you kind of fall in love with the character, and B, just show how different and what an outsider she is, which again sets up her entire story.
Brian?
I'm going to be honest, I don't remember the introduction of the character, so
that's fair.
Pass.
Valid. So now we've got 2 spots left. I know Brian said one. Kirk, Payson, unless you guys have one that you're hankering, I've got one loaded in the chamber. Unless you guys got one that you're like, I really want.
I do have one I'd be down for.
Okay.
That's okay.
So Payson, you can go ahead.
Okay. I'm gonna go back to the 70s, and I'm gonna take an introduction. There's not only just like a great introduction to a character, but honestly, like a great introduction to an actor. Mean Streets is not my favorite Martin Scorsese film, but the scene in which it starts out with Harvey Keitel's character, Charlie, just sort of giving like an opening narration. And the great part I love about this movie is Charlie is this guy who is very much like, he is the Catholic guilt sense of gangster. Like every sense of this crime, he doesn't feel good about it. Like it's just part of his job, and he just like, he has to go through, and then just you hear dun dun dun, and just the opening chords of Jumpin' Jack Flash, and then Johnny Boy, played by Robert De Niro, walks into this club. Yes, I was born in a crossfire hurricane. He's walking in with 2 women on his side. The whole scene has this like great red sepia tone to literally show like the devil is walking into this club, because that is how Johnny Boy views this crime, as just this guy that just loves it and just eats it up. I've made the very funny like comparison where like if Harvey Keitel is Cody, Boatman feels like Johnny Boy, of just these 2 polar opposites when it comes to running like trivia and like their life of crime. And I think that's really it's a great introduction.
That last sentence made no sense.
Fair.
I feel like if you had to take a list of film characters that I am like, Johnny Boy would not be in the top 1,000. But everything else you said, though, is correct. This is phenomenal intro. I like already had, the second you brought up the movie, that Rolling Stones song started blaring in my head. Like that, just that image with the slow-mo, like it. I would say this is like the equivalent to in Stagecoach when John Ford does that ultra close up on John Wayne. Just an image that turns an actor into a movie star with just one shot. Phenomenal pick. Brian, I'm going to go to you first.
You can go to Kirk. I've never seen Mean Streets.
Oh, fair. Kirk, I'm going to you.
Yeah, this is a good one. There's a couple different Scorsese characters that I considered. This one didn't cross my mind, but it is great. It should have, because this is really good. Yeah, Scorsese is so good at setting up, using the camera, using music to kind of like give you a shorthand sketch of a character right off the bat. And this might be one of his best examples of it. The more I think about it, just him walking out of the way, and you get that reaction shot from Keitel, and you see him walking in, and you got the lighting, you got the women. I think he's trying to check his pants. Right, he has his pants off. You just see like what a clown he is, but what a danger also he is to Keitel and to the situation he has going on. And I think that's the kind of relationship Scorsese's so good at setting up in his movies, is like this kind of the straight guy and the guy who's going to ruin it. And yeah, it's De Niro being like young, goofy De Niro, but with that like edge right beneath the surface where, he's laughing, he's having a good time, but at any point he could just, turn on a dime and snap on you. So no, this is really, really solid pick.
That's fair. Okay, Brian, we're going to go over to you.
If you have one you feel passionate about, you can take it. I don't need to go.
Okay, I'm going to, if that's okay, I'll make
an honorable mention at the end. Okay.
Yeah, I'll let you make an honorable mention at the end, because this is one, I feel like this one should be on here, because I just think this is an all-timer character introduction. I'm going with another 70s movie, but he's on the thumbnail. It's Willy Wonka from Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. I think this is just an incredible introduction. Just having him walk out there looking just kind of feeble and, infirm and just kind of with the cane. And then he walks forward and the cane stays in the ground. And then he does the little somersault. Like, just what a great way to just, there's been so much build-up to this character, and then have it be so disappointing, and then bring it right back around. I love it. I think Gene Wilder is just so magnetic in this introduction. Phenomenal. Payson, thoughts on this introduction?
Yeah, I didn't bring this up because it just felt like I just wanted to talk about some other movies. This is probably the best character introduction of all time. Like, I think it just perfectly encaptures the person of Willy Wonka, of like, not everything is going to be as it seems, and you can't trust a damn thing this guy does. And yeah, I think it's pretty perfect.
That's fair. Kirk?
Yeah, I think that Gene Wilder actually said that's why he wanted to do this. Like, they put this in the story because right off the bat, you can't trust this guy. You never know where he's coming from, or if he's telling the truth. So that's the whole point of this setup. And I think it is just great. It's just a ridiculous moment, like with the cane and like the way it sticks to the ground. And like, there's no reason for him to do it. Like, it just, of all the ways he could introduce himself to the world for the first time, he just does this barrel roll for no reason. So again, in so many ways, it fits the character so well. And again, not only sets the tone for the character, but for everything that's going to come after.
Valid. Brian?
Yeah, Willy Wonka is a movie that I've kind of liked less and less as the years have gone on. It's kind of, I don't know, it just doesn't age well for me. It's just got a very 70s feel to it, and which in bad ways for me. I don't enjoy it as much anymore. But the one thing that's never bad for me is Gene Wilder. He was so good in this role. And that introduction, while probably I wouldn't put it as like one of my favorites of all time, it's definitely a fun introduction for that character.
That is valid. Well, Brian, what's your little honorable mention before we go on?
I just want to say I almost picked Hans Landa from Inglourious Bastards. Just that opening scene with him. It's you cannot deny that. Just that character just makes an announcement of who he is. First thing.
And I will say too, I didn't bring this up because I've talked about it a ton for both of them, but Indiana Jones and Raiders of the Lost Ark has probably the two best character introductions with Indiana and Marion Ravenwood ever. So didn't want to let the show end without at least saying that long.
That's fair. I want to clear the air quickly with that one while Kirk's here. I said that scene was basic. What I meant by that was it's a basic pick, but I then said it was like a chocolate chip cookie. Sometimes something is basic, but it's also great. And just because it's basic doesn't mean it's bad. That I want to clear the air with that because I was tarnished on YLS, I say you. And I wanted to clear the air of what I meant by that. I called it a chocolate chip cookie, and chocolate chip cookie always means it's one of the best things. Chocolate chip cookies are great. Anyway, moving on. Now we've got the movie of the month. I haven't had a chance to watch it yet. Kirk, you said you watched it recently.
I've watched it a while ago. I'm gonna rewatch it. I'm on next week, so I'll talk about it.
Oh, Here's what happened. There we go. Brian, you said you watched it recently, so I'll let you talk about it.
Yeah, I didn't bother rewatching it for the show because I watched it just like, I don't know, I want to say like 2 months ago tops. So it's fresh in my memory. And this is a movie that I think when it first came out, I didn't think much of it because it's like Joe Wright the director had done Pride and Prejudice, which I thought was okay. But I will say it was a beautiful looking movie. He composes a great frame and like everything just looks like a painting. And honestly, everything he's done since then from Anna Karenina to Cyrano to even The Soloist and even Pan. Pan was an awful movie, but it looked beautiful, I will say. It was beautifully filmed. So I knew it was going to be a good looking film. But I ended up watching this one, I think because it got such Oscar consideration and things like that, because most of the cast was not well known. I think Keira Knightley just because of Pirates. But other than that, like James McAvoy wasn't a big presence yet or anything like that. But I watched the movie and I actually really, really like the story quite a bit. I think that the cast is great across the board from top to bottom. This is the first introduction I think most people had to Saoirse Ronan because it was one of her very first films. And she obviously, you knew right away she was going to be a great actress. I think in my most recent we watched, the thing that struck me honestly was just seeing how many of the cast members have had these big careers since then, from Benedict Cumberbatch to a couple people from Game of Thrones. You got what's her name, Juno Temple from Ted Lasso. It's just all kinds of people in this movie that I didn't realize at the time were in the movie when I first saw it. So when I rewatched it recently, I really liked it. I like the way that it kind of is broken into parts. Like there's the beginning, when they're kind of young and they're just like living at the house, stuff like that, and then there's the war section. It all feels like a completely different movie. But the story travels through on that. And I will say, the only thing I think I didn't like about this movie, can I spoil it? Have you guys seen it before? I don't know. Okay. I'm going to spoil it.
I mean, it's the movie of the month segment, so you're allowed to spoil, and anyone who hasn't seen it.
I didn't like the fake out ending. It's like the whole thing is about, the Saoirse Ronan's character. She feels like, she has this regret of this harm that she caused because she caused him to be sent off to prison and then war, and then he didn't get to be together with Keira Knightley, and so their whole lives they've been apart, and so she's as an older lady is writing this story about them, and then as you're watching the story, you see them that they get to reunite, while he's on leave from the army. He's like living at this house with her, and there's this whole like they have this relationship. But then at the very ending, you find out that they never reunited, that he died in war and she died, shortly thereafter as well. And so they never got to be together again. But just in her novel, she decided to give them a happy ending because, I guess to give them the happy ending they couldn't have in real life. And I'm just like, that doesn't make it any better because they're dead. They still lived a horrible life. And you still kind of hate this character for what she did and the harm she caused these other people. And so I just think, I just kind of wish they hadn't gone with the fake out ending, which isn't the movie's fault. I'm sure it's the original book's fault. I'm sure it's probably the same way in the original novel. But that being said, I like I said, I enjoy the movie, except for that ending. I love the acting in it, and it is a beautiful looking movie. Same cinematographer, by the way, who does all his films and has done stuff like Avengers, Godzilla. He's got a weird filmography.
That's weird. What do you give it out of 5, Brian?
I gave it a 4 out of 5.
4 out of 5. Okay. Well, thank you to Brian. Thank you to Payson. Thank you to Kirk. Thank you to everyone at home for watching. This has been Multiplex Logged It. Next week is business movies, horror protagonists, and music movies. If you want to be on any of those, not horror protagonists, but I believe business movies and music movies still have spots open. So you want to be on those, let either myself or Tim know. We will see you next week. Have a good one.
In case I don't see ya. Good afternoon, good evening, good